Elden Ring is the best game ever made. Let me tell you, you've probably heard a lot of comparisons between Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild, for good reasons too. These games are really similar in just a stupid amount of ways. Breath of the Wild showed a lot of people that they don't actually want to be told where to go or what to do, at least not in a definite, curated way. It had something to say about player freedom and discovery, and it's designed in such a way to promote that. And a big part of that design is allowing the player to miss out on or skip content. This is something Miyazaki's always been willing to do. The Soul series is no stranger to optional content. The NPC questlines are evidence enough alone, but Miyazaki's taken it well past that. Areas like the Archdragon Peak are massive dumps of happy juice when you find them. Wait, you're telling me this entire endgame area is totally missable? This is my reward for exploring? Thank you, Miyazaki! Thank you! Fuck, half of Bloodborne is optional, and this optional content is different than what you might find in a traditional Ubisoft-style open world. In those games, most content is optional only so far as your willingness to do it. Broadly speaking, it'll all be labeled on your map with big ol' icons telling you where to go, how to get there, what you'll be doing, what underwear to wear. But here, the content's optional because you very well might just fucking miss it, not even know it existed. This new generation of open world games, they don't really want you looking at the map to decide where to go next. They want you looking at the horizon to decide. The content in Breath of the Wild and how you approach it is the diegetic antithesis to the Ubisoft game. What I mean by that is the Ubisoft game needs you to be in all these places, doing all these things for the sake of the story and characters. And because these are such large open worlds and they want you to experience all this in a reasonable amount of time, they label all the content neatly in a convenient place, so you're never at a loss of what you could be doing next. Meanwhile, Breath of the Wild's narrative doesn't really need you to do anything, so the game's design is really interested in empowering the player with a sense of total freedom, and its content is designed to be visually enticing enough to facilitate their engagement with it even without the stupid icons. That rock looks cool, I want to go look at that rock! But this design philosophy, while empowering, is a double-edged sword. Since 99% of the game's content is optional and spread out over a massive area, none of it has an opportunity to meaningfully change many aspects of the sandbox because, well, statistically, a lot of people won't experience any given piece of optional content. Sure, there's the 4 powers you get from the main dungeons, and maybe you can count the Master Sword quest as another, but for the most part, the sandbox is the same from minute 1 to hour 1000. Okay, you guys following me? I'm laying out the foundation to claim Elden Ring as Breath of the Wild, but better in every single conceivable way. But before I do that, I gotta talk about a mystery third game that I think inspired Elden Ring's design, or at least has wildly similar design goals. It's Metro Exodus, the mystery game's Metro Exodus. Exodus is the third in a formerly linear series that took place in the metros of a post-apocalypse Moscow. I've been a fan of the Metro series since 2012. I remember beating 2033 on my old iMac at like 20 frames. It was fun. So it was sad to see Exodus get mostly slept on. That whole Epic Games thing definitely didn't help. That's why I didn't buy it until my brother picked it up on Steam. Anyway, Exodus does a great job at adapting a game about crawling around in tunnels and the one about freeform discovery and condensed open worlds. Condensed being the key word. Exodus's open world is split into 4 levels that are actually pretty small. This allows the developers to have confidence that even if they let the player loose with minimal guidance, they're more than likely to naturally discover most of the content you lay out for them. It's not exactly a daunting task to explore all of Volga or Limgrave, and since they can be confident you'll see a majority of their content, they can comfortably place valuable upgrades to the sandbox of your characters off in random corners of the world. No signposting, no nothing. You gotta stumble on it yourself. And as soon as you find one of these upgrades, you're infinitely more likely to start darting off the beaten path in search of the next secret power boost. And it feels even better when you do find it because you know that sick upgrade was missed by other people who weren't as perceptive as you. Elden Ring takes the best bits of all these games and mashes them together into one of the best designed, most engrossing open world experiences ever made. The core design tenets of Breath of the Wild's open world, the more focused scale of Exodus's open areas and a linear chain, all mixed with Dark Souls and everything that makes that series one of the greatest of all time. There's something to be said about linear game design and how it empowers developers to craft interesting scenarios for the player that are consistently fun and challenging. This is something Breath of the Wild had to sacrifice for its open world. Imagine you're working on Breath of the Wild. It's hard to justify crafting large swaths of content that might, say, require a special tool like the hookshot, because we have a huge open world here. Even if we put the hookshot in 10 different places on the map, the odds of any player finding it at any specific time is incredibly low. We don't want someone pulling up to a dungeon only to find they don't have the keys to get inside, especially when we're trying to sell them on the idea that they can go anywhere and do anything they want. Nintendo solved this problem by making sure the player had every tool they need for every dungeon from the start. So in effect, the puzzle and dungeon design of the entire game is stunted because it isn't allowed any linear growth, only lateral. The developers don't have the power to grow your problem-solving capabilities over the course of the game, so the dungeons all riff off the same ideas, and coincidentally, they all look the exact same too. They never reward you anything particularly interesting either, just spirit orbs and weapons that'll break in the next 40 seconds. Once it starts to sink in, the joy of discovering shrines is dulled a bit. But Miyazaki? Miyazaki don't give two shits about tossing arguably necessary things off into some basement and fuck off nowhere. Elden Ring's open world is sectioned into regions that by themselves are nowhere near the size of something like an Assassin's Creed map. But they pack these areas with shit to do and they chain like 8 of them together, so what you get is an open world that's huge but can still benefit from a more condensed design. And since you're always rewarded for getting lost in the lands between, you end up making it your mission to do that. Breath of the Wild lacked interesting, tangible rewards for its curious players, but Elden Ring can't get over how much it'll give you. Fucking off to any point of interest here is bound to get you something, from an Ash of War to a weapon to an armor set to a medallion to a consumable, fucking anything. The point is, Elden Ring is linear progression in droves, and that's really important to give the player's character a sense of growth. It also helps the designers to curate an experience that can sufficiently test your skills throughout. Even though these open areas are sequenced in a pretty linear way, you still have lots of freedom in how you approach them, and even in what order. You can get all the way to the Altus Plateau with minimal resistance right off the bat if you really wanted to. And you know, maybe you do want to do that. There's some cool weapons and spells over there you might want for your build. Speaking of builds, while we're comparing these two games, we ought to talk about their combat. My argument for Breath of the Wild's combat is thus: it's good enough to support a solid playthrough, but as far as replayability goes, it just isn't compelling enough of a system to carry my interest after that first time through. All this footage you've been seeing is definitely running on a Switch. I just upscaled it is all. But anyway, after going through all this effort to upscale Breath of the Wild, I couldn't actually bring myself to play much more of it. For context, I beat it back during its release and I loved it like everybody else, but the problem is that a solid 80% of this game's enjoyment comes from the childlike wonder of finding cool rocks for the first time. And I've already seen a lot of these rocks. The combat's pretty rudimentary, and like I've said, the designers aren't allowed to meaningfully add on to it. Although there's a lot of fun to be had dicking around with the physics engine, the core bread and butter of Link's murderous repertoire isn't solid enough to support a second run through Hyrule because of how stale it gets. And the lack of significant enemy variety in one of the largest play spaces ever doesn't help to spice up the combat on a moment-to-moment basis. Now, looking back over to Elden Ring, and I mean, this is literally Dark Souls. This franchise is known for its quality gameplay and variety of builds. Elden Ring practically begs you to replay it. Why not try another OP build in NG+? Why not go for one of those other 10 endings you didn't get? Why not? Elden Ring is an insane variety of weapons, spells, armors. This game's got some of the nuttiest shit I've seen in a Souls game. It's practically impossible to stick to a single weapon or build during a playthrough. Just when I got comfortable power stancing hammers, the Faith build started to catch my eye. And now that I've been playing for like 30 hours on my Faith build, the Bleed builds are starting to catch my eye. It's extremely satisfying crafting a bullshit build and unleashing it onto the lowly invaders. Look at him, he's trying to play this like it's Dark Souls 3 or something. Dude, I'll just curse slicing you in half with my discus of holy prayers. Get the fuck on my level, you pleb! Oh yeah, and by the way, just to give you some scale on how they compare when it comes to mob variety, there's like twice as many bosses in this game as there are enemies in Breath of the Wild, including bosses. So basically, to conclude, Elden Ring has better dungeons, better loot, better ingredients, better and hey, this isn't supposed to be a competition. We should just be glad we get to play both these games. In fact, what I'm really just trying to say is that I think Breath of the Wild low-key revolutionized the open world genre, and we're just starting to see its impact. We're gonna see a lot more open worlds ditch the Ubisoft design book and hop onto Team Nintendo. Less markers and quests, more exploration and freedom. So again, we can all learn from each other. This isn't a competition or anything. But all I'm saying is, if it was, Elden Ring wins. No contest. Easy dub. here's all the sick-ass games we're gonna get as a result of all of this. I can't wait until the open world genre holds my interest again. I can't even start to play Horizon. I got that shit on sale. It's burrowing a fucking hole in my brain. And hey, if you liked the video, then like it. And check out some of my other wares. They're all of the finest quality. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching.